jumping back into the big group. I do want to mention, I think Pamela is on here with us. She has a teacher information sheet that she gets from everyone, and there are a few of you that we still do not have that information sheet from. So she will be sending you a direct message throughout the morning to try to coordinate with you how to get that from you. It may be that you haven't already filled out and you just need to send it to her, or she may need to send you a new copy to complete. So watch for maybe a message from her in your chat that will be a direct message. Is Carrie around?
Yes, she is.
Oh, there she is. Okay. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay.
So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Okay. Are you seeing my presentation now?
Yes. But
Yes.
we're seeing, yes.
Okay. You're seeing everything, right?
I'm seeing everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me move this over here. Okay. You're still with me, right?
It's perfect.
Okay. Here we go. So we talked with you several times about and mentioned the instructional framework in several different ways and the resources out there for the instructional framework. And we told you that today we would be sharing more about that. So I'm going to take the first part of the instructional framework, and then Christy's going to take it from there and get more specific on the framework. So we want you to understand that the framework is something that we establish at the state level, and open that up and hope that everyone is using this as they plan for what they're going to be teaching. So this is the question we seem to get the most from teachers. So I'm CareerTech, I've been hired into this program, but what am I going to be teaching? What is it that I should be doing in my program? And initially that answer is a lot different than it becomes over time as you get more familiar with your position and you start developing your own goals and direction, working with your advisory committee and determining where you need to go with your program. So we're going to help you with that initial phase of getting started, and then also giving you some tips for how do you make ongoing plans and use that strategic plan that we talked about yesterday to set your program up for success, okay? So first of all, in Oklahoma, we base our instructional framework on the career clusters. And nationally, there are 16 career clusters. And this past year, Oklahoma actually added another cluster area for energy because that's such a growing industry in Oklahoma. And we felt like it was something that needed to be recognized on a bigger level. Now, when we look at that energy cluster, we see all of our program divisions fitting into that energy cluster. So there's parts of that energy cluster that we actually feed into, or that we have programs that are training within these areas that apply. But so that's a new area, and you'll hear more about that in the future, but I just wanted to throw that out there. The cluster areas that we actually manage in our BMITE division is business management and administration. And if you'll remember, that is the cluster area that Kathy is managing now. The finance cluster is Mark's area. The information technology cluster is Christy's area, and marketing is Mark's as well. All of these areas that we work on, we strive to align them to industry certifications. And there are some areas where this becomes more challenging. There's no recognized standard certification in many of our program areas, but we try to give you multiple options of trying to come up with which you want to align to, which certification area that you want to align to, and you'll get a better picture for that when Christy visits with you later on today about testing and industry certifications. I've provided a couple of links in this presentation. One takes you to the National Career Cluster Model, and one takes you to the Oklahoma General Cluster areas. This is not where you're going to find specific information related to what you're teaching, but this gives you an overview of what we're looking at the state of Oklahoma as well as the national level. So what are the advantages for aligning to career cluster and using career clusters in our programs? One is obviously that the knowledge and skills that are contained in our cluster areas are aligned to industry credentials. It provides a framework for us to be able to deliver these areas of instruction seamlessly across all different levels. For example, we have programs in middle schools, we have programs in high schools, we have programs in technology centers, and we've put together some sequences of courses that we feel like help move students through these different phases and work towards an end goal of having an occupational outcome. So it's important for us all to work together in developing programs of study that show students how they can work from this middle school level, working on through the high school, the tech center, and then on to a community college if they want to do that, and on to a regular 4-year university as well, if that plays into it. So it also, we're looking at preparing students for lifelong learning. So when a student comes to a career tech program, they're learning hands-on skills, they're learning actually relevant curriculum that they can apply when they go into the workforce, regardless in many cases of what they finally choose to for their final occupation, whether it's in the BMITE cluster areas or not. You're giving them those skills of lifelong learning, that hands-on, exploratory, figure it out for yourself kind of attitude and process for students to figure things out. And then, of course, it allows for integration of academics. And many of our schools have to show their administration, how are you integrating in English? How are you integrating in math skills? How are you integrating in science skills? And there are ways that you can do that. And the most popular ways for many of our teachers is to develop projects where they're actually using some of these skills to complete their project. So let's look at the CareerTech Instructional Framework. And we're gonna look at an actual example. So we'll break this down just a little bit, but you're gonna find in each one of our program areas that we are aligned to SIP and SOC codes. That's the classification of instructional program and the standard occupational codes. I've included some links at the bottom of this site where you can go out and do some more exploring. We don't have a lot of time to do that in this presentation, so I wanted to make sure that you have the tools to actually go out and take a look at what are they saying about this particular area that you're teaching, what are the opportunities, what are the skills tied to this, what are the certifications tied to this. And so I encourage you to, when you have some time, maybe to go out and look at these sites. One of the things that we're focused on as a state, we're focused on industry certifications. We're focused on, you're going to hear, especially in the tech centers, you're going to hear high wage, high demand, high income careers. And in many cases, for instance, in Carl Perkins funding, they're looking for you to identify with 2 of these 3 areas, high wage, high demand, or high income careers. And in some of our cases, in some of our training programs, you know, when they exit out of our programs, they're not necessarily going to be considered a high income career, but they're definitely going to be high demand careers. And there's opportunities there for them to advance and move into higher income type career opportunities. And then the other area that I wanted to point out to you is the Oklahoma ecosystems. That was a push a few years back that we focus on what are those ecosystems in Oklahoma where there are opportunities for growth in employment. And so, you know, that was something that we started looking at the behest of the governor at the time. I think that was Mary Fallon at the time when this all started. But this is something that was put into place to draw in new companies and new opportunities for Oklahomans. And so this is something that we look at as well when we start looking at our instructional framework. When you look at what we're going to provide to you, you're going to notice that we're organized at the higher level by the career cluster. Underneath the career cluster, there are identified pathways. And then underneath those pathways, We've identified state program areas. And then under those state program areas, you're going to find sequences of courses that we've put together that will help guide your students through to that occupational outcome. And we're going to look specifically at that in just a minute. I've provided a link on this page that takes you directly to the CTU location where you can find our sequence of courses. And also then this is the breadcrumb pathway to get to that. We're not going to go out there now. I've actually taken screenshots and we're going to break them down just a little bit. Don't worry, we're not going to go through the whole thing. And I realize that this is probably, you need a microscope or you need a zoom to be able to zoom in on a lot of this text because it's so small. I'm going to go past this one. Well, first let me just show you. You'll notice at the top, this is specifically for the business management and administration cluster. So each cluster area will be identified in this way. Underneath each of those clusters, you're going to find some pathways, and those are identified in this salmon kind of color here. And so this first pathway under the business admin cluster is administrative support. And then there's another one you'll notice at the bottom of the page, another pathway for human resources management. I'm not going to go through this one. I'm going to pull one that's a little bit larger. Maybe you can see it just a little bit better. How about the finance cluster? So this is still the general, the business management cluster pathways. So there's 4 pathways under business management and administration. The next cluster area is the finance cluster. Under the finance cluster, we also have 4 different pathways. Okay, so you'll notice at the top the accounting pathway for finance. Let's take a look at that one. You'll see that a state program area has been identified for accounting under the accounting pathway. So it's a little bit confusing because the pathway and the state program name is the same. But for instance, the next one, for instance, is business finance pathway. A state program area that's been identified under that one is financial services. Now, the tech centers are more concerned with the sequence of courses than the K12 schools because the tech centers have to actually identify what all the courses that they're going to be teaching and what that occupational outcome is. They actually have to identify for us what is the SOC code that goes along with that sequence of courses and what is the SIP code that goes along with that sequence of courses. We provide that information for you as a guidance. Now, a tech center may take this sequence of courses. Let's say that they do want to offer accounting clerk as one of their options for their program. And they're going to teach these 4 courses in that sequence of courses. They would submit to us the SOC and the SIP code that's identified in our sequence of courses and the courses that they're going to offer. Now, a school may decide, okay, I really want to add something to this. I want to add this computerized accounting course to this particular accounting clerk option. So you can do that. You can add that 120 hours to that, and that makes that a total of 600 hours. Now, the magic of 600 hours for a tech center is that if your school wants to offer any type of financial aid for that particular program area, you have to at least offer 600 hours of instruction. So that's why a lot of schools make sure that they get at least to 600 because the adult students that are coming in need some type of financial aid option. So that you'll hear that when you're talking with your administration and whoever puts together your program requests that come to us. They're going to be looking for, they don't want you to go under 600 because they need that to be a financial aid type program that can be reimbursed to students. So the other thing on this that you'll notice, we talked to you just a little bit about OCAS codes. For a technology center, you need a first year and a second year OCAS code for your students. And this 9,000 level OCAS code is only for tech centers. The 8,000 level OCAS codes, those are course level OCAS codes that Christy's going to share and talk a little bit more in her session. But these 9,000 level ones are not used in the high school. They're only tech center, and they're used to identify your first and second year of instruction within that program area. Now, let me just say that I'm giving you a lot of information. You may not remember it all. It may not be sinking in yet. Over time, this is going to make more and more sense as you start working within your schools to come up with what it is you're going to be teaching. Just know that we have this put together for you and your schools to look at, to guide you through what those courses could be and what might be the best for your school situation. So that's finance. Now, IT cluster is huge, and it can be really overwhelming. So it's really tiny print here, but just know that, for instance, under the networking state program area, we're in the networking systems pathway. We're in, this is the state program area here identified as networking within this pathway. There's several different sequences of courses across here that you can select from depending on what it is you're going to teach, okay? Information tech still, IT is still going on here. This is information support and services pathway with these 3 different state program areas listed underneath them. The web and digital communications is another large one. There's a lot of different options here. You can go into animation, you can go into audio and video, you can go into desktop publishing, graphic design, you can go into game design development, multimedia technology, web design and development, programming, and then we also have a track for computer science prep. And this track is actually, there's a lot of AP courses that are included in this sequence of courses. And this is one where if you've got students who are interested in going into programming and going into a 4-year university, this would be the track potentially that you would steer them towards. This is the marketing cluster. We've got, we've got 3 different pathway areas to select from in marketing, with some state program areas identified under each one. So you can take some time. This is actually one of the things that is included in your registration package. You've got a copy of the sequence of courses already there. And just know that we continually update this. And this is one of the things that we look at. I talked to you yesterday about the teacher advisory committee that we bring in the fall, in October. And this is one of the things we take a look at. We divide you by cluster areas and content specialist areas. And we ask you to take a look at these sequences, and is there a new course that needs to be developed? Is there a course that really doesn't make sense in this sequence? There's a lot of different things that you can do with these sequences.
Carrie, you have a couple of questions about the
Okay.
sequences of courses. The first question is, do students have to take courses along the pathway, for example, to get to the AP Computer Science?
Okay, so is the next question in relation to that?
The next one says, so at the high school, without the ability to offer a complete pathway to students, how do we advise students regarding pathways?
Okay, so what we recommend, I'll answer both of those questions kind of all together. What we recommend is that our teachers use these sequences to develop their programs, both at the high school and the tech centers. But we also that's because that's for alignment purposes. I'm going to talk more about alignment in just a minute. But this provides kind of a map, a guideline for teachers to work within, so that when you get to that tech center level, if a student's already taken one of these courses, they don't have to retake it again. So you've got some options in putting together your sequences. At the high school, many times that high school teacher, you may be the only teacher that's teaching BMITE courses. And so your administration may have identified that you need to be teaching accounting, which is in the finance cluster. You need to be, obviously, fund of tech. If you're a BMITE teacher, you would be teaching fundamentals of tech in that sequence. And then if they wanted you to teach accounting, those two would go together in finance. But they also want you to be the yearbook instructor. And so you're going to teach graphic design, and that's going to be in the IT cluster. But Fund of Tech would be the first course in that one as well. And then maybe they want you to teach, let's talk, the administrative, they want you to teach Word and Excel And that's going to be back in the business management and administration cluster, with Fund of Tech being the first course in that sequence. And so you may be teaching across 3 different cluster areas. So you can't get, we don't expect that in the high school you're going to finish any of these sequences, but hopefully you're going to guide them through, and you're going to show them what their opportunities are. You're going to develop a program of study, and I'm going to show you that in just a minute, of how they can get, even though they can't finish it at your school, they can start maybe in middle school if you've got that available, and then continue on in the high school, but then show them where they can go to Tech Center to finish that pathway. And as far as forecasting, Gina, we do some of that. Part of that was done through the futuring panels that we held back in 2019, and look at, you know, what are those skill sets that are going to be needed in the future.
Sure.
So we do some of that, and I'm also going to show you some interactive data that you have access to, that you can start to build your programs with. And we also use our advisory committee that comes in to help us with industry forecasting as well. So before, there's more details that we're going to get to on those questions. So bear with me and see if we answer some of those. And we can always circle back. There's no way I'm going to get everything done that I need to share with you in this 30 minutes. I think we may have to take some time at the end and come back, because there's some resources that I want to make sure that you know are out there that I'm not sure we're going to get to. So if at this time, if you know which one of these cluster areas that you're going to be teaching from, would you please put that in the chat for us? If you're going to be teaching in the business management cluster, the finance cluster, the IT, the marketing cluster, or a combination of those, or if you just don't know, just no idea what your teaching assignments are going to be. If you're teaching Fund of Tech, if you're in a high school and you're teaching Fund of Tech all day long because you have multiple teachers there, if you're teaching in the Fund of Tech area, then that applies to all 3 of these cluster areas, the BMA, the finance, and the IT cluster. You could be leading towards any one of those cluster areas, because that's the core course in all of those. Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that information with us. And again, we're going to allow more time later for questions if we don't get to this, but I really want to make sure that you get all of this information. So I'm going to move on. And this is something we want to talk about. How do you go about aligning your programs? How do you work with the schools to make this happen? So I want to show you this. If I can get to, I don't want to do it here. I want to do it from here. Okay. Do you see my my browser window right now? Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start this. This is kind of a funny way to look at it, but I really like this video. It's a fun one. Some of you may have already seen it. Let's see if you can. I'm turn this up. we're going to stop it there. Go back to that. I just like to use that one, because it just makes me smile, and two, because it does take teamwork and effort and working together to make the alignment process be effective. So what are the advantages of doing program alignment? Number one, it's going to eliminate duplication. So if you're at a tech center and you've got schools that are feeding into high schools that are feeding into your tech center, and they've already had funded tech and desktop publishing, they don't need to take it again. You don't want to make them redo those classes. And so you want to make sure that you're working to eliminate any of that kind of duplication so that your students benefit from that maximization of their time. It strengthens partnerships between all of the different levels of education, and it satisfies Carl Perkins regulations. So if your school is accepting any kind of federal Carl Perkins money, you're going to have to show that you've got alignment working. And it also includes those post-secondary options. So how do you go about the initial planning for what you're going to be doing? So as a whole, you're going to look at what state program areas will be taught. So what is it that you're wanting to teach? What are the sequence of courses that are within that state program area? What courses will you be teaching? And will someone else be teaching some of those courses? Are any of the courses that you're going to be offering, do they have Oklahoma Promise credit associated with them? And then, of course, what certifications are you going to be training towards? When you look specifically at tech centers, so a tech center is going to want to find out what K-12 schools are in your district. So who do you need to be working with at those local schools that are feeding into your program, potentially? Which ones have CareerTech BMITE programs in them? There are some CareerTech programs in the high schools, obviously. So you want to know which schools that are feeding into your program do have those BMITE programs. And then what courses do they offer that align with what you're doing? And then what other local schools that aren't other local schools that might feed into your program after graduation. And so many of the tech centers have a policy in place where any student from one of their sending schools, once they graduate, maybe they didn't come to the tech center, but after they graduate, they can still come for free, maybe within the first year or two. There's different policies at different tech centers, but that's one of the draws. If sometimes you have high school students that don't want to leave their home high school, they want to finish out all their years in their high school, but they do want to come to the tech center after they graduate. So there are some financial options for them potentially at your tech center to be able to do that, and you'll want to draw on that if they're able to do that. And where can you find this relevant local data, that the interactive data that I talked about earlier? So I'm linked here, and I'm hoping we have time at the end, but I'm not sure we will. At some point, we'll come back and we'll take a look at that, because this particular location on our website allows you to go out and find, for instance, what schools are in your area, and if they're a they have a CareerTech program there or not, and what is that program that they're offering. So you can find out that information pretty easily if you're looking for that. So let's look now from the K-12 standpoint. So if you're at a K-12, you're going to want to know, okay, is my school district a sending school district that feeds into a tech center? If not, which ones are close by? So you may not be a member of a tech center district, but you've got one close by. We've got 29 districts and like 58 campuses across Oklahoma. So you've got one nearby whether you're in the district or not. So that is an option that you will want to align to and show your students this is an option for you. And how do your courses fit into their programs? And you can find this information out through this interactive data that we'll talk about later. But I just want you to know that that's something you can find out if you're a member of a district and what they're teaching by going to this site. But that doesn't eliminate the need to make that initial contact with those programs. You need to reach out both ways. So it's not just on the tech centers to reach out to the high schools. It's also on the high schools and the mid schools to reach out to the tech centers. Great idea to get them on your advisory committee at both levels. Get your high school representative on your tech center advisory committee, and the high schools need to reach out to those tech center instructors if they align to your program. Get them on your advisory committee so you can open that dialogue and have those discussions and talk about alignment of what you're doing. So the program of study, I put the actual definition of what a program of study is, but basically in a nutshell, it's a map for your students of how to work through what you're offering or what could be offered to your students, not only through what you're teaching, but above that as well. So why use the program of study? Well, it gives students and parents that plan that they have for completing a program. It maps out that program area and how it can be completed. It identifies the outcomes. It provides that seamless educational plan that we talked about. It's a requirement for Carl Perkins. So if your school is doing Carl Perkins, you have to do a program of study. And then it's legislated now. It's legislated that students, every student has to have an individual career academic plan in place. And so your schools, both at the tech centers and the high schools, are looking to satisfy this component of how do we satisfy that everything for the ICAP. And this is something that CareerTech fits nicely into the ICAP, and you're going to want to work with your administration and your counseling group to make sure they understand how you fit into the ICAP. I've also provided a copy to a sample that we have of a program of study. You're welcome to use that. Your school may already have one in place, but this is one that you could use if you wanted to. So let's talk about the ICAP. The components of an ICAP are taking those career and college interest surveys. Students must have post-secondary and workforce goals. There must be a sequence of courses that leads towards a post-secondary goal. They must show academic progress. There's some examples of what that academic progress looks like. And then they must be able to show that they have service learning or work environment activities. This is the perfect example of where CareerTech fits into that ICAP, because we definitely do a lot of service learning and we do a lot of work-based components to our programs. So this is definitely an area where you can be a primary go-to for your school in providing this component to their ICAP experience. So in the chat area, would you just add for me, why would students need a program of study? Why does a student need to have a program of study in place? Why is this important? Direction, good, Steve. To complete their program, good. ICAP, good. Making sure that they're taking the courses that align with their career goals, excellent, yes. To guide them to success, not repeat classes, perfect. Yeah, you guys get it. Goal setting, future careers, Carl Perkins, great. Great, yeah, you guys get it, perfect. Now, let's see, how much time do I have, Christy? Do I have time to take them out to that interactive site?
Well, you only have a minute, but I'll give you that. I'll give you a little bit more time.
Okay, so we'll do this really quickly. So let's escape out of this and pull up my browser window because I should have that already pulled up here. The interactive data. So the link that was in that presentation to the interactive data, it was on the K12 and the Tech Center slides. This is where you go to find that data. There's a lot more information on this page than what I'm going to show you, but specifically, I'm scrolling down. If I want to see the state programs by Tech Center, district, and campus, it takes just a little bit to load because this is all live data. Okay, so you'll see that all the Tech Center districts are listed here. So for instance, if I picked Autry Technology Center, there's only one campus at Autry, and that's in Enid. These are the state program areas that they offer. So you'd be looking for those state program areas that fall within the BMITE sequences of courses. So I know that we do have 4 programs at Autry Technology, for example, and some of those teachers that are teaching in a program offer multiple state program areas. So you're going to see more than maybe 4 options here. There's accounting, I know, administrative support. We have administrative support for medical, that would be ours. Computer network support would be ours. Entrepreneurship. The graphic communications is a T&I program, so that's really not ours. But your students, if you've got some graphical design type program, they can still go to the graphic communications, even though it's not in the BMITE cluster area. It's outside of our area. That doesn't mean that students don't need to know that that's an option for them. So there's a lot of things there that they can do. So really quickly, because I know that Christy is watching the time clock there on me, we look at from the K12 side. If you want to know what K12 CareerTech programs are in the K12 schools, you can go to this link, and it's going to pull up every K12 school district that are located in the comprehensive schools. So if I wanted to go to Ada, for example, and Ada they're in 4 different divisions, and one of those is business and information technology, and one of them is marketing. So we have teachers of both areas in that. So if I click on marketing education, it messed me up there, didn't it? So I want to go back to this. I thought it would do better than that. So in Ada, we know that we've got these 4 divisions, that they have those types of programs there. These are their pathway options that they're teaching, and these are the specific courses that are being taught at Ada that are considered BMITE program. Well, not just BMITE, these are all of theirs, it looks like.
I know you showed Ada High School just because you wanted me to give you more time, but Carrie, your time is up.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry. And we'll, any of those questions that didn't get answered, we'll circle back to those at the end of the day, maybe, Christy, and give them an opportunity to ask us further questions. And some of the questions might get answered during your session later today too. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I'm sorry I had to rush through that. I feel like I'm talking like an auctioneer. So we'll answer more questions later. Thank you. Stop sharing.
Hey guys, we are going to go to a break. We're going to give you about 10 minutes. When we come back from break, we're going to take a photo, and then you have to listen to me. So I will see you back here in about 10 minutes. Sound good? Listen for the music. Paxton will have music playing when it's about a minute in. So see you soon.